I'd like to thank my colleagues from the chapter, Prakash and Rafaela, for arranging all of this and for make available and make possible this second seminar in our series. So, and also I'd like to thank again our audience. So thank you for coming again. And yeah, so let's introduce briefly the speaker again. So Matheus Ferreira is this time assistant professor and at the University of São Paulo, ESALC, which is one of the major centers for agriculture in Brazil, the main research centers for agriculture. And he has been involved with remote sensing for a long time, and I've met him when he was assistant professor in Military Institute of Engineering in Rio de Janeiro. So I've been um, um, uh, watching his work actually, and reading his papers on the topic of today lecture, actually today talk on tree species classification using remote sensing data. And I believe he will deliver us a very nice talk about his recent outcomes. And because of that, it's a pleasure to have you here, Matheus. For our audience, I'd like just to ask you some etiquette points before starting. I ask you to keep your microphones closed during the talk, and after the talk, we will have some times for questioning and answers. Okay, so thank you very much. And yeah, the room is yours, Matheus. Please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jefferson, for a brief introduction about myself. Thank you, EEE GRSS UK and Ireland for the invitation to this talk today. And sorry for who was in the last talk, because we had some technical issues. But now, hopefully, we can finish the presentation here. So, my name is Matheus. I'm from the Department of Forest Sciences with the University of São Paulo. And my talk today will be divided into these 5 main topics. First, a motivation about the topic. Then a brief introduction on remote sensing of tree species. Then I will clarify and explain some of the main methods we use to perform tree species classification. And focus here of my talk will be on tropical environments, particularly tropical forests, including the Brazilian Amazon forest and Atlantic forests, and also some restoration projects, forest restoration projects in Brazil. And I will present here and show some examples of ongoing research and some of the main papers I have published in this topic. Especially explicit information on tree species distribution, particularly in the tropics, are very important for forest management and conservation efforts. For example, we can locate tree species that were harvested in the past, and like a rare species, to collect seeds and for seedling production in the context of restoration initiatives. And when we talk about natural and native forests, for example, in the Amazon, we can locate tree species that are of commercial value, both for timber products and non-timber products. But this data regarding the spatial information of tree species are usually acquired using field inventories. Field inventories are the main approach that are used to collect information on tree species distribution. But this method is very costly and usually comprises small areas in which people establish forest plots and measure and identify the trees. And these plots are relatively small compared to the forest landscape, usually 1 hectare. In the last decade, we have a very large increase in the number of papers dealing with tree species discrimination. Most of the papers was performed in temperate environments in which we have a small number of tree species compared, for example, to tropical environments. Tropical forests are highly diverse ecosystems. For example, we can have more than 100 tree species in a single hectare. That's almost the same number of species that we have in the entire continental Europe, for example. So to deal with this diversity and using remote sensing to perform species discrimination, we need a very high resolution. At the spaceborne level, very high resolution means that a ground sample distance or a pixel size of less than 1 meter. So here you have in the left an example of an image of the WorldView 2 satellite. It's a unsharpened version of the image in which we combined the panchromatic band with the multispectral bands. And this resolution is necessary to identify trees at the individual tree crown level. Once we have identified the crown of the trees, the other main challenge is to identify the species. But for this purpose, we have to identify the individual tree crowns. Now we have available, so technological improvements allowed us to acquire very high resolution images using, for example, drones. And using drones, we can have like a centimeter scale resolution. Here in the right, you can see a drone image that was acquired over an Amazonian forest, and we identified all species of palms in this image. And here you can see, for example, that the image allows us to identify different species of palms, and this is because we have like a 4 centimeters resolution. But the literature of tree species discrimination usually was performed, most of the works involved hyperspectral remote sensing. This type of sensor can collect spectral images over the electromagnetic spectrum, and it acquires hundreds of narrow spectral bands. And once we have identified the pixels that represent certain tree species, we can extract these pixels and extract the spectral response of the tree species. Here's in this work, it was one of the first works we have performed in tropical forests in Brazil. It's part of my PhD back in 2016, in which we investigated the potential of hyperspectral images to discriminate tree species. And look into the spectral response of the tree species, we can see that the species have different spectral responses here. This is because the structural and the chemical traits of the species varies along the electromagnetic spectrum. Some trees, for example, have a higher concentration of leaf pigments. For example, this red line here, Pachystroma longifolium, for example, you have very dark green leaves, and it has a higher absorption here in the red region, and it's related to the amount of chlorophyll that leaves of the species have. So if we investigate these along the electromagnetic spectrum, we can capture subtle differences of the tree species using hyperspectral data. And for this purpose, and for this reason, hyperspectral data have you have a higher classification accuracy when you use hyperspectral data to discriminate among tree species. In this seminal paper here of Fabian Fasnacht, that he compared it, and it was a very nice review on tree species classification from remotely sensed data. We can see that hyperspectral sensors usually have higher classification accuracies. But this assumption here is questioned when you have a very high resolution image. We have very good results using convolutional neural networks and drone images that can capture the structural differences among tree species. And then I will show some of the results of works I have been done the last years. So when we would like to classify or to identify tree species using remote sensing images, the first step is to locate the target species in the image. So we actually should identify the pixels of a species in the image. And once we have identified the target species, we can now perform a set of feature engineering to extract the main characteristics of the trees. So this process here is very time consuming because we do not know exactly what feature will be the best to discriminate among the trees that we would like to identify in the image. So we perform a set of, for example, texture, a set of filters, segmentation methods to extract the main features that can be used to discriminate the species. And then we use these features to train a classification model. And here we are dealing with pixel-wise classifications. So we would like to incorporate as much information as we can to train the model. And in the end, we would like to produce a semantic segmented image in which all pixels of the image is classified according to a given class of interest. And this process we refer machine learning. It involves feature engineering, training a classification model, and perform semantic segmentation using the classification rules that was learned here using this model. Each of these steps here are very complex. We will have hundreds of feature extraction methods, and you have also hundreds of different classifiers that can use these features to discriminate and label the pixels of the image. Here we refer this process of feature engineering, model training, and semantic segmentation of machine learning. But now we have experienced a high increase in classification accuracy using end-to-end processes, and deep learning is the main method here, particularly convolutional neural networks, can be used to discriminate and to map tree species. So if you have an image and we have the target trees here located in this image, we can pass this image through a set of convolutional layers, and these layers will extract the main attributes, and then we can perform either object detection, in which we will locate the bounding box of the target trees, and perform also semantic segmentation, in which we will label each of the pixels that are of interest, and instance segmentation methods will combine object detection and instance segmentation. But here, particularly in tropical environments, deep learning methods will fail if we do not have a large amount of training data. So in tropical forests, it's very difficult to acquire training data because it's very hard to get to these trees, and given the high diversity, we also require expert knowledge of botanicals. For example, botanists to identify the trees, and if we have more than thousands of tropical tree species, it's very difficult to identify them. So in this context, machine learning methods can provide better results than deep learning methods if we have a small amount of training data. But when we move to a scenario of a high amount of training data, here I'm referring to individual tree crowns, deep learning methods will provide much better results than machine learning methods. So in this talk here, I will show some approach on how to deal with this small amount of training data, and some investigations we have been performed to augment the training data using the most advanced methods of deep learning. So in the tropical environments, we have also it's very difficult to get the species of each of the trees given the diversity of the canopy, and we have a high cost and time to construct what we call individual tree crown datasets. The first work here I will present is related to the discrimination of palm species in the Amazon. Here in this paper, we asked if we can map different species of Amazonian palms using RGB images acquired by a low-cost drone. And for this purpose, we selected an area in the state of Acre. It's here, in the Brazilian Amazon, that's highlighted here in green. And this forest is it's a highly diverse forest, and it's almost here conserved. Here it's a conservation unit in which we have an experimental station. We have here also a census in which we identified all the trees within this area here that's highlighted in white. And for this purpose, for this work, we collected drone images with a very high spatial resolution, like 4 centimeters, and we identified, or we manually delineated all palm trees that we see in the image. And once we delineated all these palms, we identified them to the species level using expert knowledge of botanists and also field data. So to delineate all palms here, we were a team of more than 6 researchers here working on delineation and identification of the trees. And we constructed a very robust data set of individual tree crowns. Here we can see that we have several different species of palms here, but we could identify only 3. Only 3 species, and some of the species that we could not identify, we call it like a non-identified palm. And we used the pixels of these trees to train a convolutional neural network. We use it here as backbone for feature extraction, ResNet, and we incorporated this ResNet into the DeepLab v3 Plus architecture for semantic segmentation. And in the end of after training and prediction, we have very good results. Here in the left, we have the manually delineated tree crowns, and in the right here we have predictions of the network. So we have very accurate predictions here, although we do not delineate perfectly the tree crowns because it was a semantic segmentation network, but we are also interested in identify each of these trees. In the paper, we performed a post-processing procedure to separate here each of the tree crowns. And we what was the repercussion of this work was very high, because we showed that we can map this palm here. It is Euterpe precatoria, that is acai berry. I know that it's very famous in Europe and probably also in the UK. Acai berry is a very important non-forest product, and we show that we can map it over large area using deep learning. And this method here, it's now we have more advanced methods now, because this paper was published in 2020, like 5 years ago, but it was the first one to show that we can use low-cost drone images and also deep learning methods to provide a very accurate results for this species of palm here. In the same area, we also investigated the use of multi-temporal drone images to perform species discrimination. In this work, we also constructed a very robust individual tree crown dataset that was composed of images acquired in different seasons. And the main idea here is to investigate how we can combine the images to perform species discrimination. Here we can see that the phenological patterns of each species varies a lot here in this area. And by phenology here, we mean mainly leaf loss and also flowering and fructification. And we would like to investigate if a combination of images can provide better results than using single images to perform species discrimination. And we used the same network, but we combined the images. We trained the network individually using images from each of the seasons here. And also we combined the images into a single stack with 12 bands, and also input these 12 bands, 3 bands for each date to perform, to train the network. And we got good results using what we called a multi-season database. Here we can see that in the rainy season, that is November, we have the higher classification accuracies using single date images. But when we combine all images, we improved the classification accuracy for some of the species. This is because the network was able to learn some of the phenological patterns of the species, and we acquired very good results using here multi-season images. The other work here we performed in the Amazon was to map Brazil nut trees, Bertholletia excelsa, using WorldView 3 images. And here in this work, Brazil nut trees, I think that you probably know, it's also very important non-forest product, particularly in the Amazon. We have several communities that live exclusively from this kind of nut that is collected of this huge tree here. This is Bertholletia excelsa. It can grow like up to 60 meters high, and in the forest landscape, it can be very well located. And here we constructed an individual tree crown dataset in an indigenous territory in the Amazon, in the Kayapó indigenous territory. And we, it was a partnership with a company called Bioverse, in which we would like to test if we can use WorldView 3 high-resolution images of 0.3 meters of ground sampling distance or pixel size. And we showed the potential here of using WorldView 3 images to locate Brazil nut trees. And the results were quite promising here. We acquired here a very high classification accuracy, and the network could identify this tree over the forest landscape. And this is a very important information for the local communities, because they can also identify here the most productive grooves of or patches, and it's also very important to optimize here the seed collection. And the problem here of this work is that it was based on WorldView 3 images. And as we know, WorldView 3 images are very expensive. For this purpose, we would like to test if we can use WorldView 3 images to improve the spatial resolution of CBERS image. CBERS is a China-Brazil satellite, and it acquires images with, it has a panchromatic band of 2 meters. And here we can see a pan sharpening view with 2 meters of the same area. And we can barely see here the Brazil nut trees. And we investigate the possibility of improving the resolution of the CBERS images using the WorldView 3 images. So we tested super resolution networks like guns, mainly cycle gun, to improve the resolution of the WorldView 3 images. And here we have some of the results. We have a paper that are in prep here. We can see the CBERS image, the original CBERS image, and the WorldView 3 counterpart. And here is a super resolved CBERS image in which we improve the resolution of the CBERS image using the WorldView 3 image as a reference. And we tested if we can use a model that was trained on WorldView 3 images to classify Brazil nut trees in the super resolved CBERS image. And the results here were quite promising. We, of course, using WorldView 3 images alone, we have a much higher classification accuracy, but using here the model that was trained on WorldView 3 images and the super resolved images, we got also good results to identify the tree species, this Brazil nut tree. So here we have we did not tested training and testing the model on the super resolved CBERS image. This is we are performing this test now, but we are mostly sure that we can also have very good results here using super resolved CBERS images to identify these Brazil nut trees in Amazonia. Here we have also the problem that I was mentioning, that is the cost and the difficulty to acquire individual tree crowns or to build individual tree crowns datasets in tropical environments. So we are now working on answer this question: how to improve and to augment the sample size of individual tree crown databases in tropical environments. So here is some of the tests that are currently under review, in which we would like to augment individual tree crown datasets. Here we are showing an image, an RGB image that was acquired using a drone. It has a 2 centimeter resolution, and it is of the Cerrado biome in Maranhão state in northeast of Brazil. So the first step here is to use a zero-shot segmentation, in which we used the segment and think model to delineate individual tree crowns, and these are the reference masks in which we could identify using field knowledge and botanist expert knowledge the species of the individual tree crowns. And we use it here, the zero-shot segmentation, to attribute, or we can use each of these tree crowns to train another method called SWAV. It's a kind of non-supervised deep learning model. This method uses, it's a deep contrastive method that is used to cluster, and it identifies different clusters of trees. And we train this model to perform an initial clustering of all trees that were delineated in the previous step. And the next step is try to attribute a threshold or a probability value to each of the clusters using here we use the fixed match method. And we got very nice results in which showing here the latent space of the SWAV, and we can see that the clusters has the clusters have a very nice distribution. And when we analyze the prototypes that are the clusters and the images with a higher probability or class memberships probabilities, we can see that the model could group the tree species very well here. And we can also use a very conservative threshold of the fixed match method to generate new samples of the trees. So underrepresented species here, for example, species that we have less than 30 individual tree crowns, we could augment by generating new samples. The other work here that is currently also under review is also related to deal with the scarcity of labels in tropical forests. Here we implemented an active learning method in which the method was firstly trained with a reference database, and then we performed here some morphological operations to delineate the tree crowns, and we train the classification method to here we use it new samples here that was learned by the model. Here is, I think here is clear. The process initiates here with an initial training set, and after a set of active learning iterations, we can improve the number of tree crowns of each of the species. And here we can see that in the last iteration we have much more tree crowns here than in the first iteration. And we could also here we augment the number of individual tree crowns while we maintain it here a stable F1 score in the testing set. So here we are testing here. We implemented a deep active learning method in which we could improve the number of individual trichons and also maintain here a stable F1 score. And here the last paper that is currently under review in our group is how to deal with a very important topic, that is the uncertainty in the classification of tree species in highly diverse. Here we are dealing with tropical urban environments. We used a dataset from a previous work that was published in 2001 here, in which we developed a multitask convolutional neural network to perform tree species classification. And here we used the open set concept to test if we can generate better results in this highly diverse environment. For example, here this work was performed in a small neighborhood here of Rio de Janeiro. It is the Grajaú neighborhood, but in this area here we have more than 100 different tree species. So how to deal with this high diverse? Using a standard classification method that we call it a closed set, the method will classify all the trees in the area according to the training classes. So here we are dealing with 7 species, and the classification method will label all the trees using only 7 classes. But we have more than 100 trees species in the area. Also, how to deal with this uncertainty? We investigated here open set approaches using the open set concept, in which the classification is performed on the known classes and also on a set of unknown classes. And using this approach, we could also improve the classification accuracy of some of the species. And mainly here, we have the possibility to map the species that we do not know, map the trees we do not know the species exactly. And we can also produce this kind of map here, in which we have inserted here an unknown class. And this method performed quite well here. We can see here in this upper left corner of the image, we have an unknown class that was like a large forest patch here, but in the closed set it was classified erroneously as Licania tomentosa, and here we have like an unknown class. So thank you very much for your attention, and now I am available here for doubts and for any questions that you have.